exclusive international cricket live. The West Indies versus England on Talk Sport 2.
Well, welcome along to the Following On podcast from TalkSport 2. Coming to you after the first T20 international between the West Indies and England in Barbados. And it was a big win for the home side. The West Indies getting off to an absolute flyer, winning by 9 wickets with 17 balls to spare. But that doesn't really tell the tale. The West Indies won the toss and elected to bowl, and bowl well they did. England bowled out for 103 in 19 overs and 4 balls. Jason Holder taking his T20 international best of 4 for 7. Sheldon Cottrell weighing in with 2 for 30 from 4 overs, as England only managed to post 103 all out. Chris Jordan top scoring with 28. Adil Rashid with 22. No one else passed 20. Owen Morgan 17. James Vince got 14. So England only had 4 men in double figures. It was a difficult batting performance. Gareth Batty, former England spinner, alongside me at the moment, along with Jared Kimber and Steve Harmison. Let's get Harmy's thoughts first up, though, on the batting card from England. I tell you what, let's go to Gareth while Steve just joins us in a second. Gareth, from an England point of view, how well did the West Indies bowl? And how much of it was a combination of England not batting terribly well, and how much of it was a pitch that actually did quite a bit early doors?
I suppose everything, all of the above that you just mentioned. I think Cottrell and Holder did start very nicely. They swung the ball a little bit, but the fact the pitch had a little bit of inconsistent bounce and a little bit of variable pace, you wouldn't say that was unplayable, but it needed possibly a few more balls. It needed a bit more assessment than what we possibly afforded it. Very easy to say in hindsight, obviously, but if you look at their attack further down, so if you look at who's going to come in with the young left-arm spinner Hoyson, Shepherd, Smith, Pollard, Allen, not as much threat further down, so don't lose those wickets up front, which goes against everything that England have been so successful with. But if you just play in one fashion and you don't adapt to the circumstance, the atmosphere, the pitch conditions in front of you, sometimes you found wanting, and today that was the case. Now, this is not about ripping it up and scrapping what we do. We just sometimes need to swallow up a few more balls and use our skill. There's some wonderful skill in our top 3, 4 even. Roy, Banton, Vince, Ali. They can all afford to take 10 balls and not score a run. And by the end of their innings, if they face 30 balls, they're all going to strike at 120, 130. They have wonderful hitting ability. Sometimes, if it doesn't happen from ball 1, you just have to soak it up a bit. But it wasn't to be today. Those guys shouldn't be worried about it. They'll go out and play again tomorrow, hopefully.
Can I just let's wind the clock back even further. Bearing in mind that England have only been in the West Indies for a week. They've had one warm-up game, which they won pretty convincingly. From that point of view, how much of this is almost feels like an early season game, in the fact that sometimes things do go a bit wrong, and actually it's now how they adjust and how they react to what's happened today in tomorrow's second game?
There were certain periods of play where you would have suggested that. Certain periods we looked a little bit rusty in certain aspects. But I think for most of these guys, they've been playing cricket and they play cricket year-round. Lots of them like to take time out as opposed to continually practicing all the time. So you've got to get up to speed. And 2020 cricket is a very unforgiving format of the game. If you get it wrong quite often, there's not a lot of middle ground. You either look amazing or you look poor. And unfortunately, it wasn't to be.
I'll tell you what, let's have a listen in with Jason Holder. He's speaking with Mark Butcher.
Yeah, it just feels good to perform for the team. It was a tough series, the last one we had against Ireland. Myself personally wasn't really happy with my performance, but it's good to bounce back this way. We've always talked about it in the dressing room. Being able to bounce back and just face adversity front on. So I'm really pleased with the effort that each and every individual put out today.
The bounce you got. Did that surprise you? I know you know this ground exceptionally well, but even you must have been surprised at the way the ball carried through in those early exchanges.
Yeah, I was happy to see the ball go through the way it did. And the Caribbean these days, sometimes you struggle to see the ball go through that. But I just hope that it remains consistent. I think consistency is the key for us in terms of our pitch preparation. And I was really happy with what we had today, and hopefully it stays the same.
Backed up extremely well by the fielders as well.
Yeah, it was outstanding. We had a really perfect day, to be honest. There's not much I can really pinpoint that we did wrong. I guess the challenge for us is being consistent and repeating it tomorrow. Yeah,
tomorrow, no real rest for you. The body's feeling fine. There's only 4 overs for you. You can bowl all day.
Well, yeah, it's the main thing. I'm up for it. I think the schedule is what it is. We've got a hectic schedule this year, and just about managing yourself, recovering well, and being up for each and every challenge.
Okay, well, perfect start for you in this 5-match series. Your player of the match, Jason Holder. Well done.
That's right.
Fantastic.
Mark Butcher with Jason Holder, and that must be the biggest no-brainer for player of the match after he produces those numbers. 4 for 7 he managed to record with his bowling spell. Let's hear Owen Morgan now in conversation with Butch.
On a wicket 2 or 3 days ago. So again, West Indies, dominated the game early on. We lost early wickets. We didn't seem to adapt well enough in running, which is what you have to do when challenged like that with I suppose, movement and a bit of bounce. So we'll have to come back tomorrow, fresh game plan, try and execute it better, because I think conditions have a chance of being very similar.
Yeah, I know you're not one for making excuses, but you mentioned it there. Once you saw that bounce in the first couple of overs, was there a case of sort of get that message out, try and see off the new ball in the power play, and maybe bring back your par score to something like 130 or 140?
Yeah, absolutely. It was something that we spoke about pre-game when we come to the West Indies, probably more so in Barbados and probably one other island in St. Lucia. A little bit more bounce. The only thing we found tricky today wasn't that consistent. But again, trying to get that mindset around risk-reward, we found a challenge today. Hopefully we'll come back better tomorrow and rectify that.
Clearly you've got players in there who have ambitions to be a major part of your T20 setup going forward. What do you say to guys like that after a day like that? I know you're very keen always to accentuate the positive, go out there and play your own game. Are there harsh lessons to be learned there, or is that something you just go do it better next time?
I think it's the nature of international cricket. You get tested, you get exposed in certain areas throughout the whole of your career. There's some guys that are just starting and this will be their first challenge. I'd be encouraging them to stay as positive as possible. You see past that first 6-7 overs today, regardless of the strike rate you might have had, and conditions did get better. So there is that light at the end of the tunnel, but certainly a challenge that we need to get better at.
You were supposed to cheer up the England fans after the Ashes, don't you? Come out here expecting to see the number one side in the world go about their business. They don't have to worry the next 4 games.
Yeah, here we're trying. We always get great support in the West Indies. Today we had a huge amount of fans in the ground. It's great that they came. Encourage them to come back. We're playing Sunday, next Saturday, Sunday, and then a game midweek in Wednesday. So we hope to play better cricket in those opportunities, and hope to do them proud.
Okay, right. Thanks, Owen. Thanks for speaking with us. See you tomorrow.
Owen Morgan speaking with Mark Butcher after the game. We'll get the thoughts of Barry Wilkinson in a moment as well. We'll bring in Jared Kimber and Gareth Batty as well. Actually, I just want to raise something here, Gareth. Owen Morgan, before the toss, was talking about having a look at players and trying different combinations out over the course of this series. He's just said there about the slightly different conditions maybe that they've encountered today than what they were expecting. Does that maybe suddenly then change their thinking? Because they might have had a little idea of what they were already planning for tomorrow, but they've just seen the pitch do this. Are they maybe England changing their thinking ever so slightly now?
You would hope not. You would hope that they went into the series with an outcome goal, and if that is to look at certain individuals, you can only assess them on the surfaces that they're playing on, but you still need to assess those individuals, or else you're not going to get the outcome that you required from this period of time. So for me, you've got to stick to your guns and stay strong. And I certainly don't think selection was a problem today. Absolutely not. They're all our sort of next cabs off the rank, for want of a better expression. It just didn't quite work. I think it is as simple as that.
Right, well, let's bring in Barry Wilkinson, our West Indian commentator, at this point, because we're obviously looking at it from an England point of view, slightly deflated. Barry, what a opening to this series from the West Indian point of view. Every island's going to be bouncing up and down after that performance.
Yeah, you want to see it, though, in a bit more consistent fashion. And I think that Jason Holder hit the nail on the head when he said, we don't just want this to be a one-off, we want this to be something consistent, because that has been the issue with the West Indies, their lack of consistency. And the reputation of a lot of these players are at stake. Holder's one, because people have been saying, here it is, the West Indies have got supposedly one of the best all-rounders in the world, and he's just not performing, or he's doing it in shadows. He has to be more consistent, and I think that today is a step in the right direction. He got 4 for 17 when he played against Pakistan in August, did not make the World Cup squad, and many people were surprised. Then there was an injury, he got into the team, and he didn't look his best at the Cricket World Cup, but who did? So, he's back in the side now, looking to stake a claim in this 11, and I think he did that today. He's trying to build his reputation to be a more consistent T20 player. Puran has got a lot to prove, the captain's got a lot to prove, so this series to me is going to be about the players living up to their big IPL reputations or franchise reputations, which they have not done for the West Indies.
In terms of what we're likely to see then going forward from the West Indies, we've just heard Owen Morgan, we just mentioned it there, about England are going to have to try and tinker it around. They're going to try and have a look at a few combinations. During the Ireland One-Day International Series, the West Indies kept the same squad. Do you think it's going to be a settled approach from Kieran Pollard and the management for maybe the first couple of games of this series?
Yeah, most definitely. We didn't see a lot of Odean Smith today. He only bowled one over. Perhaps they might be thinking about rotating Smith, rotating Sheldon Cottrell, not bowl them into the ground, but just have their plays a bit more in a rotated fashion. We've still got a lot of cricket to be played. Right after this series, the West Indies head to India for also a T20 and a 50-over series. And you heard Jason Holder speak about what the management is going to be like of their bodies, the management is going to be like of their cricket over the next couple of weeks. So you don't want to play everyone every week. You want to ensure that someone is going to get a week off to get some rest. So this is the squad that they'll be looking for. They wouldn't want to do too much tinkering before the Cricket World Cup I think it's in October. And I think they're going to keep this squad and keep it going as long as possible to see what is going to be the best combination when they do reach the T20 World Cup in October.
Jared Kimber, our analyst, I'm sure has got some insights with some of the numbers. What did you make of what we've seen then, Jared?
I think it's always important when you see one T20 game to actually understand the sort of fluky nature of it. So that game's basically decided on the first 4 wickets. Jason Roy got a knee-high full toss. It did swing, and it was fast, but it was a knee-high full toss. He probably backs himself to hit that 9 times out of 10. James Vince got a half-tracker outside off stump, somehow found the field. Again, probably backs himself there. Moeen Ali got a full ball outside off stump that probably gets him out 1 out of 100 times. There was a lot of talk about the bounce and how they didn't handle it, but realistically, 3 of those first 4 wickets went from not particularly good deliveries and a little bit of luck there. You have to factor that in. So I think the West Indies specifically, they'll be going, okay, we've won this game and that's important, but did we bowl the best in the environment? Jason Holder probably did. Sheldon Cottrell probably didn't. How do we go at the death? We still struggled at the death, even though England didn't have anything left. And England should be looking at that going, that's not going to happen to our top, or that shouldn't happen to our top order again in this series. They're going to have to get us out from here on in, and I think those are important things. If I was working for either of those sides, that's what I'd be pushing. On the West Indies side, I'd be saying, look, we could have actually bowled better here, and on the England side, I'd be saying that's probably not going to happen again.
The one obvious thing from a batting point of view, we were very on the front foot. We were trying to run down the pitch. We were trying to meet the ball. If there's a lot of bounce in the pitch, get deep in the crease. Let the ball travel further. These guys are super skillful. I think if they'd have let the ball travel further and not gone at the ball quite as much, they maybe would have found it a little bit easier. But as I say, it's very easy to say when you sat off the field and you're not in the heat of battle, because it was a good plan, and you would say it's a good plan as a rule to tall bowlers to get down the pitch because they always have the bounce. So put a bit more sort of momentum on the ball. But I think just on this occasion with the tennis ball bounce and it being indifferent, possibly hanging back, might have been a better approach.
In terms of going forward then, look, we're only one day, if you like, one day of work into this, Jared. I mean, what did you pick up? What did you note that maybe England can look to work on?
I don't think there's that much for them to work on, because I I think there was a fluky element to being 4 wickets down so quickly. Jason Holder's not going to be 4 for 7. Jason Holder's not a great power play bowler. I think the important thing for England to note is something that Bats mentioned earlier, is that in the second half of the innings, they really don't have a great death bowler in this lineup. They're not even sure who they've gone for. They didn't throw the ball to Odean Smith again. Fabian Allen ended up being their death bowler. That means if England don't lose early wickets again, that they're in a very good position against this West Indies team. So they might just, because of the pitch, go, do you know what? We'll knock it around a little bit more in the power play than we usually would. We don't have maybe quite the long batting lineup we have at other times, and then we can really punish the West Indies at the other end, which isn't their natural game plan, but on these kind of wickets against this kind of bowling lineup, might work.
Well, I'm delighted to say that Liam Dawson is joining us from the England camp after the game. Liam, thank you very much for joining us here on the Following On podcast. Your initial thoughts after that game? It was a strange old game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's always disappointing to lose, but as I said, we obviously didn't get enough runs on the board. It was a tough pitch throughout, but we get another opportunity tomorrow to put that right and learn from tonight.
Were you surprised, I mean, sort of so early on to suddenly see so much carry and bounce? I mean, you did play at the ground in the warm-up game the other day. Did it play particularly different to how that particular pitch did?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit worse tonight. As I said, we didn't get enough runs on the board. 120, 130 on that wicket could have been a different game. So as I said, learn from it and move on to tomorrow night.
From a bowler's point of view, is it a case of, look, we've seen what they've done, do we try and replicate it? Or is it a case of, right, let's stay with our own skills and our game plan because we know we've got enough quality within the camp to cause them trouble?
No, definitely. I mean, we always talk about sticking to your strengths individually, and you probably don't need to get too funky on a pitch like that. If you're looking to, as a spin bowler, looking to hit the stumps at a good pace, the wicket can do a lot of the work for you.
Hi, Doss. It's Bats, thousands of miles away in the cold. Are you expecting the next 4 games to be similar surfaces to that?
Oh, I think so. I think historically it spins a little bit here. They might be a little bit better, but we're going to have to wait and see that it looks the same sort of pitch tomorrow night. We've just got to adapt probably a little bit quicker than what we did today and put some more runs on the board.
Well, I thought you bowled beautifully today, my friend. I've got one bit of advice for you. Do not buy a lottery ticket tonight, because I don't think the gods are with you. I thought you should have had far more wickets in the bag, pal.
Yeah, that's T20, and I mean you can bowl worse than that and pick up 3 or 4, caught on the boundary. But I've played enough cricket now to understand how the game works, and hopefully if I play tomorrow night, I can get a few wickets maybe.
Very best of luck, pal.
Thanks, Bats.
Yeah, I mean, four overs, 0 for 12, going at an economy rate of 3 in a T20 international. On the face of that, you'd be absolutely delighted with that, wouldn't you, Liam?
Yeah, of course. It's it's something I pride myself on. It's looking at my economy in T20 cricket. Obviously, you don't have much mystery as a finger spinner. So, yeah, as I said, I try and keep things very simple. I'm a very simple cricketer, and hopefully, I can pick up some wickets as the series goes on potentially.
I know it's not your job in terms of team management and everyone's availability. Obviously, there's been Liam Livingston who's been struggling with illness. Do we know whether the squad will be sort of everyone available to pick for tomorrow, Liam, at this stage?
I have no idea, to be honest. I guess I'll just wait and see tomorrow.
Liam, thank you very much for joining us so soon after the game. Really do appreciate your time for joining us here on TalkSport 2. Liam Dawson joining us from the England dressing rooms, and we do thank his time. Steve Harmison is with us on the podcast here as well at this point. Harmy, your thoughts on that one? We started the evening so positive, so full of life, and unfortunately, from an England point of view, that sort of ran out pretty quickly.
Yeah, it did run out pretty quickly. I think the big wicket was Jason Roy. I think when you look at England's batting unit, you've got Banton going in first with Jason, then you've got James Vince. I think Roy was a huge wicket. I think on this sort of surface, you've got 2 young players or 2 inexperienced players coming in behind it. It's not the same crash bang wallop batting unit that England have had that makes them the best team in the world. And like Jared mentioned just that little bit earlier, new ball bowler and Jason Holder. I think because Jason Roy went so early in the game, that there wasn't a chance to sort of have a go at Holder and that fuller length, taking the ball away. He would have been beautiful. Jason Roy would have opened up the offside, and he'd have fancied himself, if he had batted another 10, 12 balls, to enjoy facing somebody like Jason Holder on this surface. But it wasn't meant to be. The whole day was a poor day for England, full stop. They didn't get enough runs on the board. I thought they were slightly sloppy in the field. I'm not going to criticise the bowlers, because when you've only got 103 runs on the board, you're trying to take wickets, and it didn't happen. But I thought everything about the West Indies, all three facets. I thought the fielding was fantastic. I thought the new ball bowling was excellent. They got the ball to swing, put the ball in good areas, and their batting was not West Indian like. I thought it was thoughtful. I thought it was disciplined, and I thought they played the situation very, very well, especially Big Brandon King.
I know you've been prowling around the place. Do we have any confirmation yet as to regarding the pitch for the second game? Do we know? Are we going to be using this one again, or is there a fresh pitch available for tomorrow? I'm just thinking that if it's this one again, then England will certainly amend their plans for the second match from what Owen Morgan was saying at the presentation ceremony.
Well, as I look over my shoulder, Macca, and I'm sitting right behind the surface, and it's just watered. It's absolutely soaking wet. So it is being watered. Whether that's got anything to do with trying to get some more life and more consistency in it, I'm not so sure. The groundsman's watered. There was two pitches to the left of the surface. They've just been watered. The actual ground, the pitch that we've just been played on, is being watered, and the other two pitches on the other side, it looks as though they're about to be watered. So my guess is as good as yours whether they're going to play on this wicket or not. It looks as though they're rolling the one which is further to the commentary box's left, which is next the Grange and Haynes stand, next to the Garfield Sober stand, a very, very short boundary if they decide to play on that one tomorrow. The talk was the surface was a lot better 2 nights ago when they played the warm-up game against the Barbados 11. A lot truer. The ball came onto the bat a lot better, and it was easier to score on, hence the way Jason Roy played. But I thought, do you know what? If I was the West Indies, I would play on a surface like this, because it negates all the big shot players that England have got, the power players that England have got, and I think it plays more into the West Indies' hands.
Depending obviously on Liam Livingstone and his illness being available or not, do you say, right, well, okay, you were our best 11 for the first game, it's a very quick turnaround, let's give it a go again, because as I mentioned with Gareth Batty earlier, it is the first game of a tour that's only a few days old. Maybe a couple of guys needed just a little bit of a run out to get some mileage into the legs. Do you turn it around and say, right, let's go same again for tomorrow, but maybe just a tweak of the tactics with the 11, or do you see Owen Morgan maybe roll in a couple of changes?
I'd like to see England make a couple of changes. I'd like to see England give the majority of the players that are out here a game. We covered the South Africa series not long ago, Macca, and England played the same side 3 games in a row, took a 16-man squad, 5 players sitting with twiddling their thumbs. I'd like to see England give George Garton a go. Saqib Mahmood didn't have one of his greatest games, but I'm not going to criticise any of the bowlers because England just didn't get enough runs on the board. I think if Liam Livingstone's fit, he plays naturally because he's one of England's top players. Spoke to him before the game, and he said he's just starting to sort of keep food down. So whether he'll be ready for tomorrow, I'd be doubtful. I think he might be kept for Wednesday. Do England go with, if Livingstone is fit to play, do England leave a seamer out and go to try and win the game by not needing the extra seamer in, maybe it's a Saqib Mahmood? I'd like to see Tymon Mills open a bowling on this surface. If we play on this surface again, I think Tymon Mills has to open a bowling. Go hard with the new ball, give it a chance to swing and maybe bounce a little bit and put pressure on the West Indian batsmen. From a tactical point of view, I look at that, but goes back to the red ball team. If you can't put enough runs on the board, you're not going to win matches. So from a bowling point of view, we always look for bowlers that change up because you carry more bowlers in your squad. Will be interesting because you can never second guess Owen Morgan and what he's going to do with his tactics and team selection.